Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brabber, alongside me is Logan Camden, and we have some real postseason basketball to talk about today. Oh, what a wonderful feeling it is, Logan. Two awesome play-in games yesterday that we're going to react to. We're also going to answer some big playoff questions that we have today, but I want to start by talking about the first postseason game of the year, which was an absolute epic. And overall, Logan, that doubleheader, that's got to be the best night of play-in basketball that we've ever had, right?
Certainly. I don't know if it's particularly close. Those were both barn burners.
Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal basketball. I think that's exactly what the Dark Father, Adam Silver, envisioned when he put this whole idea into practice. But that was really, really awesome, man. And I think it was additionally special in the Charlotte game because it meant so much to the fans. There's so many fan bases where you're just like, all right, the play-in, who cares? Or you're even kind of upset that you're having to play for your spot in the playoffs. For the Heat fans, it's just an inevitability every season. It's not something to get excited about. You just know that you're going to be there. For the Hornets, it was like, we haven't touched postseason basketball in so long. I mean, they were in the play-in a few years ago, but haven't had a full playoff series in a long time. And so you felt how much this meant to them. And then when you get some of these super dramatic moments, it just makes it even bigger, makes it even better. I kind of thought, Logan, the Heat got Power of Friendship mogged. I kind of thought they got Team of Destiny mogged. The Hornets kind of had that energy going.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I was very happy for the Hornets. I just thought they kind of got fucked by Bam going down.
Well,
that kind of put
I
a little bit of
completely agree with that as well.
That put a damper on the game for me. Just how it ended, how close it was, and to be quite frank, I mean, that shit was pretty damn dirty by LaMelo. I don't really know any kind of context that could justify him swiping and going at Bam's ankle.
I agree. It was kind of like the more that you got to look at the replay, the worse that it got, because it just seemed to become clearer and clearer that he was just upset and just took Bam out. That was definitely a non-basketball play. Definitely looked dirty and sucks that it took Bam out of the game. So yeah, maybe that puts a little damper on the Hornets' whimsy that I was just spreading, because that's very true. Heat fans have an absolute right to be upset because that sucked.
It's your best player in a one-game scenario, and you go to overtime. The ending of the game, it did feel like it took away from the ending a little bit. And yeah, I agree. It was a little, it was a little childish, a little bit petulant, I would say, on LaMelo's part, and very dirty.
Yeah, this game was just a circus of wild moments from LaMelo and just an array of emotions that one could feel about LaMelo Ball. Some real high highs, some real low lows, and that moment just sucks. And LaMelo apologized to Bam, whatever. I don't think there's really any way to make that right. The league is now looking into if they're going to deal out any punishment to LaMelo, which would obviously be devastating for the Hornets if he can't play in the second play-in game, because you got to win them both, Logan. I do think it's brutal that Bam got taken out of this game. I also did feel throughout, though, it would be the most Miami Heat shit ever to win this play-in game without Bam Adebayo. Already going into the game, I was like, the Hornets are clearly the better team, but you just know that once the Heat get into the play-in, they get a plus 10 overall boost. This is what they live for every season. This is where they've made their living. 3 consecutive years before this, they got through the play-in into the playoffs. And then it's okay, once they go down a man, that's when Heat culture really activates. And you almost feel like it doesn't even matter who's on the court for them. It just matters that they are the Miami Heat. And I did still have that feeling throughout this game. Obviously, not to say that you didn't feel Bam's absence in terms of what he was doing early in this game, attacking Musa and just Charlotte's slightness out of the post, what he would have meant for them on the defensive glass, where Charlotte was phenomenal on the offensive glass in this game. Obviously, Bam's their best player, and it sucks that they didn't get to have him on the floor for a do-or-die game to decide their season. But I did still think that this was a pretty insane and pretty epic and magical game all around. And let's just start with what this means for the Charlotte Hornets, Logan. Again, they've got to get one more to actually get into the playoffs, but what sort of statement did they make with this win, and how much does this mean to them as an organization?
I mean, it probably means the world. You can't have shit in Charlotte. I mean,
No.
This is the iteration of this Hornets young core. This is the verge of a breakthrough kind of moment. I mean, this is a big fucking deal. We always talk about it, man. all this anti-tanking stuff all this year. Sometimes teams just suck, man, and the Hornets have just sucked for a really long time, to say it plainly. Like for teams like the Sacramentos of the world, the Washingtons, the Charlottes, the fan bases that just live in perpetual agony year after year. This is massive. I mean, I was watching the game with some Hornets fans last night, and they're just overjoyed. They are exuberant at the prospect of actually just competing and showing face on the world stage. And personally, as an outsider, I mean, I would like to see Charlotte just with their play style. I think they have the most fun play style remaining of any team left in the play-in. I just think, even though it would be a drastically different contrast of styles, the power element of Detroit and the surrounding shooting of Charlotte, I think it would be the best matchup-wise, but it's the culmination of a lot of years and a long time of suffering, man. Like,
it is.
You got LaMelo, and LaMelo has not been able to stay healthy for the beginning of his career. You get Brandon Miller, and you're like, oh, this guy would fit so well with LaMelo, and they rarely share the court together. And then this year, they crush the draft in the offseason. They get a guy like Con Canupple. It's incredibly ironic. Con goes 2 of 12 in this game, and they win it without him really performing well either.
And with him sitting on the bench, he didn't close regulation, and he didn't touch the floor in overtime.
Exactly.
And they kept on just cutting to him on the bench, and he looked very sad.
I couldn't believe I don't know if it would have been a mistake. I probably would have put him in one of the closing moments just for a shot, but
I agree. I thought, like, the play that they drew up for Kobe White, which was a brilliant call and worked out brilliantly.
Shit,
what can you say?
Bro.
Incredible shot.
Great.
Like, shout out to Big Nuts Kobe White.
Oh, my God. One of the finest wine takes I have ever seen over the course of a season, bro. I have to tip my cap. Holy shit, that aged beautifully.
Kobe White, the 4th member of what some have called the greatest three-point shooting big four in NBA history, Logan. Thank you very much. He was electric. Like, that stretch in the late third quarter and then obviously hitting that shot, just some ridiculous three-point shot making. But I couldn't believe that they didn't want Con on the floor when, like, you just need one possession to get 1-3 up.
Not even if you're going to give him the shot, just the attention that he would draw,
decoy
you would
factor,
assume, right?
Yeah. Charles Lee said, Con, you have been bad today. You are not going to see the floor when it matters most. And so we need a Con redemption game. Luckily, he lives to get another opportunity at redemption. He's been on a little slump recently, though, but that's what I think makes this so incredible. Like, Con was bad in this game. And particularly when you think about this team and you think about their brilliance this year, so much of it has been predicated upon the remarkable three-point shooting, specifically of Con and LaMelo. Those guys ranked 1st and 2nd in threes made this season. They went a combined 2 of 22 from 3, and they won this do-or-die season-on-the-line basketball game. Like, that is where this is just such a remarkable team accomplishment. There's so many guys who I think you have to give credit to, and the fact that this is how you get through. Again, they were in the play-in 4 years ago, but they haven't been in the playoffs in a decade, and they're not there yet, but I do think that they should get there. I think they are a really, really good basketball team, as we've seen, and it's almost remarkable how long they've suffered for. Like, a decade playoff drought in the NBA is kind of crazy, and it makes you think about, like, how insane it is that the Timberwolves went, like, 14 years and the Kings went like 17 years. You're like, how is that even possible? That's such incompetence. But the Hornets hadn't been much better, and their best players were not good at the thing that they are generally best at. LaMelo obviously has his playmaking too, and that came through in this game. But that's where this is just a crazy, crazy way for Charlotte to advance, and I think the whole team deserves so much credit.
I completely agree. And yeah, to put a bow on what we were talking about earlier, I just think it's the culmination of prolonged suffering, and you are finally seeing the fruits of that suffering. And I have to give the Hornets organization a bunch of credit too, not just for, right, you can get the picks early in the draft, but then you have to get the pieces. Credit to them for drafting LaMelo and believing in him and sticking with him. For getting Brandon Miller, but I would say more specifically what they did in this offseason, drafting Con Canupple, getting a guy like Cian James, Ryan Kalkbrenner to the rotation, trading for Kobe White at the trade deadline. Like, all of these moves have led up to this moment, and they've been one of the hottest teams since the beginning of this new year. They're 33-16, as you've mentioned throughout this show too. they've routinely not had their big three on the court together, too. And when they've been available, they've been nearly unstoppable. The other two guys that I want to give credit to, definitely because it is a team accomplishment. Miles Bridges was insane in this game. His three-point shooting was incredibly valuable. You talk about Con and LaMelo struggling from behind the arc. Miles, Brandon, and Kobe alone give you 15 threes, all of them divvied up with 5. And I think Bridges, obviously, I don't enjoy giving Miles Bridges a ton of credit. He is north of the Jaden Ivey line, so he does have a job. He does bring a valuable basketball element to this team in terms of that downhill power in mismatch attacking and transition scoring, and that is where I think he does fit this team like a glove and brings a really valuable skill set in contrast to all these elite shooters, and he brings another dimension of valuable scoring that you don't really get in that kind of way from other guys up and down this roster. And then I just want to tip my cap to LaMelo, man. That was a big nut shot at the end of this game. I thought Miami was going to steal it. Tiro came out a little bit flat early in the OT period, missed a couple of big shots. Circus 3 gets fouled on a corner 3, takes the lead, and then LaMelo ices the game in isolation on Jaime, and that was a big-time shot, that D-cell step. The one thing this isn't as big of a deal. I just couldn't believe Miami didn't put Wiggins on him in that final possession. That would have been the only schematic difference I think I would have made. I didn't like him having Jaime on him for that final possession for Miami's sake.
Yeah, I thought that Charles Lee did a really nice job of drawing that one up, too, where you get LaMelo attacking Jaime off the catch and really with the paint cleared out. And that was the story of the game for LaMelo, like his driving and his ability to attack some of those matchups that he was comfortable in and actually get to and finish at the basket, which has always been his biggest offensive limitation. It's his 2-point scoring and specifically his finishing. That was the first game this year in which he made 10 or more 2-point field goals, and it came at the biggest possible time. First one this year. So that's absolutely massive when you talk about the 3-point shot being completely off for him. And this is a guy who lives off of the 3-ball as much as anybody in basketball. To be able to supplement that with the inside the arc scoring was a really, really big deal. And this was an absolutely wild LaMelo game. Like, he has been the heart and soul of this offense. He has been the driving factor just with the combination of the 3-point shooting threat, but his playmaking has been absolutely unbelievable. Like, when you put these sort of shooters and play finishers around him, his ability to warp a defense and then to consistently create for those guys has just been so phenomenal. And you got some of that in this game with the driving, with some of the floater shot making, with the passing where he racks up 10 assists and he's pretty much always brilliant. But then also, in some ways, this game was a disaster for LaMelo. Like, the 3-point shooting, going 2 of 16, disaster. His defense was absolutely atrocious. Not only was he getting, like, relentlessly targeted on that end, there were so many just egregiously dumb plays from him defensively, honestly. So he was just getting attacked over and over again on that end. And then he has this sequence where you're up 2 and he turns it over as he gets trapped in the backcourt and then fouls a 3-point shooter. Like, the 2 worst possible outcomes for what could happen in that sequence. And it's just like a legacy-saving play from him that he goes down and gets that layup because, again, I've really, really become fonder of LaMelo this year. Like, I think my eyes have been open to the brilliance of his offensive game and how impactful he is offensively when you put the right kind of players around him. But that play where he turns it over and then fouls a 3-point shooter, like, that is the cynic's idea of LaMelo Ball, pretty much, you know, like this sort of caricaturish idea just throughout this game of the guy who is going to jack up threes and maybe misses more of them than you would like and maybe takes more crazy shots than you would like and then has a sort of boneheaded play in a big moment like that and is really, really problematic defensively. Like, it was all of the stuff that I think the LaMelo haters would have keyed in on, and that would have been sort of the defining moment of like, man, now people are going to start to question, is LaMelo actually a serious player? Like, we would kind of go through all the same criticisms that he's always dealt with, even though he's been better this year than ever before. And I was just very happy that he overcame that on the next play and made that great play because the Hornets have been too good for their season to have ended that way last night. LaMelo's been too good for it to have ended that way. So props to him for getting it done in that spot.
That's a nasty word to me. I hate when people try to run with one-game
Bro,
narratives.
I got a text from one dude who's like, straight up, LaMelo is awful, like hilariously awful. And I'm like, well, it's just so many people tune in only for postseason basketball. And so that's where, like, truly legacies are made. And, like, these are the defining moments for a guy. And I just think things are going to look better for the Hornets in the next play-in game because I think the three-point shooting luck is, like, bound to swing back their way.
Yeah.
When you win a basketball game and you miss 38 three-pointers, and again, they made 18 of them because they put up 56 because they're the Charlotte Hornets, but, like, they're a much better three-point shooting team than that. And so I do think that this offense is super potent, and that's obviously a huge part of it.
And that's really hard to overcome. I mean, they shot 10 more times overall than Miami, 113 to 103, and they put up, 15 more threes than Miami. I mean, that's just such a weapon.
Yeah, well, they damn near never turned the ball over in this game, although Miami also kept turnovers low. But that's where you give so much credit to Musa and Kalkbrenner. I mean, especially Musa with the 8 offensive rebounds, but Kalk getting another 4 in his 13 minutes, which they won convincingly, like just absolutely massive second chances. And that's where, again, the brilliance of this Hornets offense, yes, it's predicated upon LaMelo's playmaking and the three-point shooting, but also the fact that they're this unreal offensive rebounding team, exactly, that they have these bigs who can eat up those second chance opportunities. Like, it's massive. And I just think Musa should be a Charlotte legend for life. Like, the guy totally plays his ass off and also came up with some big moments guarding in space in this game. And then, as you said, like, Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller, I thought were really the two-way standouts in this game. Again, LaMelo is always the engine of the offense, but Bridges with the mismatch attacking earlier, which is absolutely an essential dimension to this offense when you're going up against a switching defense. Like, he's the one guy where it's like, okay, if he gets that switch with Hero, if he gets that switch with Davion Mitchell, like, he can just overpower those guys and he can beat you as a paint scorer. Whereas it's like, there are moments in this game where it's like, okay, Kobe White, he can go out there and he can attack Hero and maybe he can get by him. But then once he gets into the paint and he has to start playing among the trees, like, he's very uncomfortable. Khan isn't somebody who can attack one of those matchups one-on-one, right? That's just not what he does. Even LaMelo is not at his best as a one-on-one scorer. And so that's where Bridges brings something unique to this team that you did see. But then it's also just massive when he makes 5 threes like he did and had some big moments defensively, including like the game-sealing block, but some good one-on-one defense on Bam too. And then Brandon Miller, I thought, was active defensively, made a couple plays, and he also hits 5 threes in this one. And just has had a really nice season. I really like Brandon Miller. I think he is such an awesome, like, number 2, number 3 guy offensively because the three-point shooting is so valuable with him and the ability to create his own shot from 3, the ability to be a high-level off-ball player, solid passer, like, just a really good offensive player. And then obviously you have to give credit to Kobe White for hitting some absolutely massive shots, 5 of 8 from deep, including the biggest one of the season for them. And then I think, again, some props are owed to Charles Lee because I did think there was a little bit of a late game coaching edge. Like, I thought both of the gotta have it possessions to end regulation and in overtime, he drew up great stuff, right? He got them an advantage off the play call. And then on the flip side, I want to know what you thought about this, but at the end of regulation, when you're looking at a tie ball game with 10 seconds left for Miami, I understand the inclination is always to call a timeout because you want to get settled, you want to draw up your best play. But in that moment, Charlotte had their super small, all offense, all shooting lineup on the floor. So if I'm Miami, I would be inclined to say, let's just push here. And let's just see if we can attack this lineup and not allow them to get LaMelo and Kobe White off the floor to bring in Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate so they have their best defensive lineup out there. And they ended up forcing Hero to take a very tough shot. Whereas if you're looking at that super small, super offensively slanted lineup, like, you have more guys to attack. You're going to attack LaMelo on that final possession, and he's been struggling all day. And you're also very likely to get a second chance opportunity if you put up the shot with 2-3 seconds left because you've got a massive size advantage on the offensive glass.
I'm going to be honest. I hadn't thought about it. I didn't even think about that until you just brought it up. But, I mean, it's not a bad point. I mean, it's something that I'll think about from now on. I would have burnt the timeout if I was the coach. I didn't even think about something like that. That didn't even factor in my brain during that final sequence.
I think, man, you want to be able to have weak points that you can go at defensively. And, like, they had a couple that they could have gone at. So I did think to me, the advantage of being able to draw something up did not outweigh the advantage of being able to, again, attack quickly, also with the full court to build up momentum and attack in sort of semi-transition if you want, and to be able to do it against a much weaker, smaller defensive lineup for Charlotte. I do think we saw a couple of the flaws come out for Charlotte in this game, just in terms of them having some of those defensive weak points like LaMelo, who Miami was, again, relentlessly going at. Kahn, I thought, held his own pretty well in this game. It was not like the Boston game where Jaylen Brown was just going at him. I'm talking about defensively. Obviously, Kahn was not good offensively in this game at all. And then I think the non-LaMelo minutes on offense are going to be something that they maybe struggle with. And that's kind of been the case throughout this year. They've been this unbelievable offense when LaMelo is on, and they just have very much missed him in the non-LaMelo minutes, not having that sort of high-level playmaker to really run the show. And overall, I think offense versus switching teams, right? That's been kind of the question we've had about Charlotte when it comes to the playoffs, and you're going up against more athletic defenses who can switch everything. They're not a team that has a lot of one-on-one creators, and I think you saw the limitations of Kobe White inside the arc there, of Akon Kneppel, and that is going to put a burden on Miles Bridges for sure to be important in that role. I'm more worried about the defense, just because I think they can get overwhelmed athletically. Brandon Miller, I thought you saw against like more powerful forwards, had some issues holding his own as like a one-on-one defender. So the offense is great. They're a really good basketball team. They are also flawed, and I do think we saw that in this game.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think they have an A1 superpower that gives them a shot in any game that they play. And
definitely.
It's baby steps, man. Baby steps. I agree.
Well,
I do think.
No, we shot right past that because the Hornets have been winning 70% of their games at the big three playing, and they've been the number one offense in basketball since January 1st. So I'm not judging them like a typical 9 seed. I'm judging them more like a 5 seed or a 6 seed because they've been playing such good basketball for so long.
I'm judging them like a 9. If they were they would have been in the 5 seed if they were a 5 seed, but they're not.
Well.
So.
Bro, I mean, what are they when they're big three play? They're like 38 and 19 or something.
I'm just saying that if Charlotte would, the NBA season is so long that like you'll balance yourself out. If they belong there, if they deserve to get in, they would be in, but they're not.
We're always hating on the Charlotte Hornets.
No, they're great, dude. They have a suit. I'm just saying, like, we know that defensively they are flawed, and I think if they do get this Detroit matchup, I do think it is a little problematic. But like I said, man, speaking from experience as a Kings fan, I was so thrilled when we got to go toe-to-toe with the Warriors in a 7-game series, and even though we lost, that series rocked. I was just happy to be there, and I think for a lot of suffering Charlotte fans, like, this is just awesome that they have an opportunity to crash the postseason party and that they're going to have a chance to actually compete against somebody. Like, I know that for a lot of teams, it's championship or bust. For Charlotte, it's like, this is the culmination. This is a big deal, and I think that they are just very happy to have an opportunity to be in the playoffs, man. It's the championship is not for every team. Just getting to the playoffs is a big-time accomplishment for the Hornets.
Of course not, but I have high hopes for them to, give somebody an interesting first-round series. And also just when you look at, okay, what does this team need to address going forward? Like, some of these things have come to light. Because I don't want to treat the Hornets like they're some charity case of like, oh, yippee, they're here. Like, of course, we're all rooting for them now that they're here, but like, they're really good.
Yeah, they're better than teams that are above them in the standings. I agree.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Like, they've been playing like a top 10 team in basketball for a long time now, and that's why I'm treating them accordingly. Props to some of the guys for the Heat who stepped up in the absence of Bam Adebayo. I thought Davion Mitchell, really, really good in this game, making them pay when they just left him as a three-point shooter, but also just the ability to consistently generate paint touch after paint touch. So good. Andrew Wiggins hit a lot of big shots, some big threes, did some really good work from the mid-range, shooting over top. And then Kel'el Ware, man, like, hell of a performance from him. He is just such a talent, and it's very inconsistent in terms of him putting it all together and some of like the motor and effort stuff. And at times he's been sort of like at odds with this Heat team and their identity and their basketball philosophy, but just the physical gifts. I mean, just an absolutely massive human being who can also kind of sit there and spray threes on you and gobble up every offensive and rebound overall and block 5 shots like he did in this game. Like, he's very intriguing and probably their most interesting young player. Like, actually, I think he has to be.
I just felt bad for him in this game, not having Bam on that back line, just having that lineup to turn to, especially on like that closing sequence where they got behind him for that lob, where I felt like he was there. And it's been kind of the case for Bam and Khalil this entire season. They're the only big bodies on this roster, and that's why I think depth is so important across all positions. Like, and obviously, you don't want to have to have a contingency plan for when your star goes down, but you do need options. And I just felt like Miami, even though Charlotte's not this super imposing physical team, they've got 2 big bodies like Kalkbrenner and Diabate, and Miami literally just has Ware. And they've got big guys, right, like Wiggins and Jaime, but they're not guys that I look at and go, oh, yeah, these are really high-end possession finishers, right, guys that are going to shut it down. I have been impressed by Khalil, though, man, and I think he rocks. I do wonder about the viability of him and Bam lineups still moving forward a little bit, just in terms of how they fit together like perfect puzzle pieces, but he is a good young player, and I was impressed. I just felt bad that they didn't have Bam out there, man. That disappointed. I've been a Miami Heat advocate all year long, and so seeing them just not have a guy like Bam was disappointing to close out. But I like Khalil a lot. I just think Miami's really solid, man, and they are they're about as play-in as a play-in team can get year in, year out. But they're just solid across the board.
But how long can you be destined for?
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's kind of their thing, though, right?
It is, but for the love of God, man, how many off seasons is Pat Riley going to talk about, ooh, we're going to land the big fish, and
it's
then
heat culture,
they
bro.
do absolutely nothing. Like, I think this team might run it back, knowing them. That's been their tendency, but that would just be so uninspiring. Like, you've won 1 playoff game in 3 years. You are a super mediocre basketball team. I know you try to talk yourself into the Heat culture, this, that. Like, we just got to be serious. This team does not have the talent to put a scare into anybody, even in like a first-round series. Like, they are just so mid.
What's the alternative?
The alternative is go out there and take a big swing. Get Tyler Hero out of here and see if you can put together a package for, obviously, best case scenario is like a Giannis. We'll see if any other stars become available this offseason. But I don't think that Giannis is untouchable for Miami at this point, because I think
gives you
the market...
You have to give up Bam to make that happen, right?
No. You give up Hero, you give up Wiggins, you give up a young player, Khalil Ware, because I think he's the most intriguing, and then 4 firsts, and you get Giannis. Who's putting together a better package at this point? Because I just think the Bucks' leverage has completely dissipated. Everybody knows the situation is a disaster. Everybody knows that the Bucks and Giannis are at each other's throats and are just done with each other at this point. And the teams that you look at and it's like, oh, they have the best package. It's like, it's not going to happen from the Spurs. It's not going to happen, obviously, from the Thunder. Like, those teams are not going to mess with what they have going on.
I just think in that scenario, when it's official and confirmed by reporting that a lot of teams are out there going after him, I feel like everybody's going to come out of the woodworks. They're all going to come with their trade offers. And it's not a bad deal. Tyler Hero gets to go home to Wisconsin, hometown boy. Milwaukee will probably bring him in. They'll love him. Sure. I just think there will be some team that will offer a bigger fish than that is the key guy. Like, you don't think the Knicks could somehow get some play in there, man? Like,
How?
I don't know. You throw them.
The Knicks don't have draft assets. And the Knicks' big contracts, like, are they going to move off of OG? No, they're probably going to try to move Cat. And at that point, it's like, no, thank you. I don't want anything to do with that contract. Like, the Heat can throw them a ton of picks. And I think maybe some people would say, okay, well, the Warriors can give them more valuable picks because they can give them the post-Steph Curry picks. And it's like, yeah, there's truth to that for sure. But it's not like the Warriors have any intriguing young players to give them, whereas the Heat can give them a Tyler Hero. They can give them a Khalil Ware. Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's a done deal, but I think they absolutely are going to be in the conversation. Cleveland?
Say no? Cleveland hits their head again.
But, like, with what package?
Mobley.
Whew. I don't know. Cleveland would have to hit their head and fall pretty fucking hard. Like, that'd be a pretty massive
I'm just saying, we're going to have a conversation later. I mean, somebody's going to get bounced early. somebody's going to have to take a long look in the mirror and make some tough decisions. And I mean, Giannis he's the biggest fish.
Absolutely. Look, I'm not saying if the Miami Heat want Giannis, they're just going to get Giannis. I'm saying if they don't do everything that they can to get him, I think that that's just going to be a shame because what is this team treading in water for?
I mean, if you can – my philosophy is for any NBA team, if you can get Giannis, get Giannis. Pat Riley is also a notorious cheapskate.
Yeah, that's true. But at some point, he's going to have to wake up and realize that you can't keep doing this every year. Like, a Bam hero duo is getting you absolutely nowhere. A Bam Giannis front court, that starts to actually get you somewhere. That starts to actually put you in a position where you can win playoff series, which, believe it or not, is possible, Miami. Like, you don't just have to sit in the play-in and wait to get your ass waxed in the first round. And so that's what I think they need to be doing. And again, it doesn't have to be Giannis, but particularly, like, I'm just offering Tyler Hero on the market because I'm pretty low on him, man. I just think he is an awful defender who gets relentlessly attacked in postseason environments. He's sucked in back-to-back years in the playoffs because of his limitations as a scorer when he is not having an advantage created for him with a screen. And so when he goes up against more athletic, better switching defenses, he struggles. Like, I just don't know how much he means to you in the playoffs. And the Heat were better without him this year. They were 14-19 in games that he played. He had a -6 on-off differential. Like, I just don't think that Tyler Hero is a playoff player at $30+ million like he's being paid right now. So I think the league probably mostly agrees with that. I don't know that there's much interest in Tyler Hero, but he's somebody. He's talented. He's relatively young. Other than that, you just look at this roster and it's like, all right, Wiggins is 31 with a player option. How long does he figure into your plans? I don't know. Norm is 32 and expiring. And then you've got like some decent young talent with Ware and Hawkes and Jovic, who had a really bad year. I liked when they extended him, and he's just got to find his form again. And then it's like Yakuchonis, okay, I think he could be an interesting player. Pelle Larsson was decent from this year, but he's like 25. Like, what is there for this team to hang their hat on and say, okay, this is what's carrying us in the present or the future? Like, it's just always so obvious where things are headed. It's eternal mediocrity if this remains the approach.
I also just wouldn't count out I get what you're saying and them not wanting to mess with championship formulas. I also wouldn't count out San Antonio and OKC. The only reason I say that, too, is just because
I would count out OKC.
Well, I think OKC is less likely than San Antonio because I think OKC is my title favorite, and if they win the championship, I really highly doubt them going. I'm just saying we need to consider all avenues, and if either of those teams were to get bounced and say, okay, we're going into the offseason, we need to reload the clip and get better. I mean, for San Antonio, I think it's pretty easy. You go, here's Fox. You go, here's some picks. I'll attach some another guy. I would ideally not like to give up Castle and Harper in that scenario, but if they had to, I mean, holy shit, dude. Who's stopping that team?
Well, if you don't give up one of the young guards, then it's not really that holy shit of a package. Then it's De'Aaron Fox and picks, and the Spurs' first-round picks are not valuable. And so then you have to say...
They have other teams' picks.
Yeah, they have the Hawks pick, but, like, they're not just loaded up with them.
I don't know. I'm just saying that these things change very rapidly. We see a team get bounced.
The Thunder are not trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. That stuff has been ridiculous, like every single time it's been brought up as a talking point. Their core is set up to be a dynasty. Like, there's no reason for them to mess with that. You're not trading Chet Holmgren, who's 23 years old,
I'd trade
for Giannis.
Dub if I had to move somebody.
I would rather trade Dub than Chet, absolutely, but, like, they're not going to do that. They're too good. The formula is too good, and the Giannis-Shea fit is weird. And I just think it causes them to compromise too much when they're already the dominant team in the NBA. And then you look at the Spurs and it's like, it's possible, but I don't know. Like, I think both Castle and Harper were so awesome this year, and you were so awesome. Like, you're a 62-win team. Wemby's already in MVP conversations. I just don't think there's much reason for those teams to mess with things right now. Whereas I look at the Heat and I'm like, what are you even messing with? Mess around, man. Fool around. Find yourself. Have a summer of experimentation. Like, And if it does just end up being this deja vu of, oh, the Heat are going to try to do something and they do nothing, well, then fucking let's fire them into the sun because they're kind of a silly basketball team right now.
I mean, I think there's incentive for Miami to do it. The hang-up for me with that, too, is, like I said, I feel like there are other teams that can provide Milwaukee a better trade package. And then I also look at it and I just go, I don't know, man. How many wins does that Miami team get? I agree they're better, and the team
with
built around
Giannis?
Giannis is a lot easier. But, like, I don't know, man. What, they're like a 50-win team? I don't know if they'd be my favorite.
That would be amazing for the Miami Heat. That would be a miracle. Like, yeah, I think absolutely. When you're talking about a Giannis Bam front court in the East, and like
janky.
You would still be able to keep some of these depth pieces, it's not that janky with how Bam has started to space the floor. Like, it is a little bit, definitely. But, I mean, when you're just talking about the front court athleticism and rebounding and the defense that you're getting there, like, it'd be pretty freaking sweet, man. It's not a perfect fit, but for the love of God, like, the Heat are not in a position to be nitpicking, man. Like, the Heat are in a position where if they get Giannis, they should do whatever they can to get Giannis.
Pat Riley will probably go, you want Jaime? I'm cool on Giannis.
Maybe. And that's why I'm not running the Miami Heat right now, and I'm saying I hate what the Miami Heat are doing. And if they continue to have this mentality, I will continue to hate it.
You guys want former NBA champ Andrew Wiggins? That's
Can't
a little
do
too
it
much for me, man.
It's a deal breaker. Pelle Larsson, we really like what we got out of him as a starter for stretches this year. I just think you got to take a big swing. But the Miami Heat, Logan, I know that you're more of a fan. I just don't like where they're at. And also, like, what a weird season. Norman Powell was an all-star this year, man. Can you believe that? I thought our buddy Jack Jokic Joestar had the perfect tweet when he was like, if you told me when Norman Powell was named an all-star that he would be like the 11th most important guy in a play-in game, I'd be like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, how the fuck did Norman Powell get named an all-star, man? Boggles the mind.
He's getting buckets. He's an elite spot-up guy.
Nice. Really good spot-up shooter, man. Good off-ball scorer. And low impact in, like, every other way. And pretty easy for him to have very quiet performances and generally more of, like, an awesome sixth man than an all-star. Crazy. Or a good third, fourth guy for an offense as a starter. But weird stuff for sure on that front. Let's move on to this Blazers-Suns game, Logan. We both picked the Suns to win this one, but they were denied by Portland, and they were specifically denied by Deni Avdija finishing with 41 points and 12 assists. What did you make of his performance in this one to lock up the 7 seed for Portland?
I do not like watching Deni Avdija play basketball, I'll be honest.
You loved the Denny Miles Bridges masterclasses. That was a Logan Camden dream day of basketball.
That's blasphemy. I don't like really watching Deni play basketball because basically the ending of this game was just him going boof, 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 boof to the paint. Like he's just like a bulldozer getting down there. It was pretty sad on Phoenix's part. Pretty embarrassing. Like Portland's offense ran so cold in the third to fourth quarter. Phoenix went on like a 24-4 run, something like that. Like Portland had missed like 15 of 16 threes. They had 5 turnovers. Like they had the floodgates wide open for Phoenix to get back in this basketball game, and it was basically literally just Deni getting fouled or getting to the rim and getting an attempt, and that was what shut the door on Phoenix. We do have to issue an apology. We said that Jalen Green tax might cost Phoenix, and then Jalen Green ended up dropping a calm 35 piece on Portland's head. So sorry, Jalen. I do apologize. Also, though,
look, it was the Jalen Green game. This happens every couple weeks.
True.
He gets hot as a jump shooter. I mean, he was really cooking for mid-range. Also, some very, very bad turnovers in the fourth quarter. Also, didn't create any shots for his teammates all game. But I'm kind of hating there because I'm low on Jalen Green overall. He was very good in this game. He kept their offense afloat with the jump shooting for some extended stretches and with, attacking the paint early in this game.
Yeah, he kept them alive in this one for a while. The funniest thing to me is just how limited this Portland offense really is around Deni. Like, it was really Deni getting his, Drew chipped in a little bit, and then just some streaky three-point shooting from basically Drew and Jeremy Grant is what kept Portland alive in this game. And then shout out, I should have given a little more credence and props to Klingon coming into this game. We should have added some more to the Klingon bonus. Him giving you 6 offensive rebounds was
we
big
did
in this game too.
We specifically addressed the Klingon.
I'm saying
bonus.
we should have moved to the Portland side because of the Klingon massive factor.
This wasn't a great Klingon game though. I mean, he's always going to do his stuff gobbling up the offensive boards, and he's always going to do his stuff as a rim protector. He always is. But I did think he was kind of getting fried and dropped by Jalen Green, and that is where Klingon is the most giant-coated NBA player I've ever seen. Not just because he's massive, he's literally 7'2", 280. He moves around like a giant would. He sits in that deep drop, and he's not coming out more than 12, 15 feet. He's awesome at what he does. He is very, very slow-footed, and I did think that Jalen Green was able to just kind of probe his way to the mid-range, and some of these are warm-up jumpers for him, pretty much.
Well, I was going to say, dude, it's like slow motion. Oh, no. I cannot contest that mid-range jumper.
Well, he doesn't want to, and, I think as a principle, you're probably right to just, let the Suns' offense live off of Jalen Green middies. Some of those, though, again, were, so comfortable, so wide open, where it's might be nice to be able to apply a little bit of pressure there.
But, yeah, the ending was surprising. I don't know, if you had asked me, we get down to it, nitty-gritty, fourth quarter, 6 minutes left, tie ball game, which offense am I going to lean on? I would say pretty confidently, give me Phoenix, give me Book to close the team out, but it really was. It was the Deni show, the consistency of just getting downhill. Phoenix didn't have an answer for him, man. He's one physical ass driver, and that was the difference at the end of this game for Portland.
100%. When we talked about this game, my philosophy was, okay, I like Phoenix's team defense a little bit more. I like their coach more. But also, I'm when it comes down to it, best player on the floor in a do-or-die format like this, give me Devin Booker. And instead, it was just Deni completely took over when the game was in the balance. He completely took over after that dry spell, as you're mentioning, in the second half, when his team was getting nothing offensively, and really nobody created much of anything outside of Deni for this entire game. He created 70 points of offense for them, and he was dominant in the clutch, whereas Book, you just never really felt his presence much in this game. And left a couple of points on the board at the line that end up mattering, particularly misses one late free throw. But overall, I just thought was kind of settling some, not a very impactful Book game. Didn't really feel him as a playmaker in this one. And then it was really all about Deni for Portland. I called Portland mid going into this game. I do think that both these teams are pretty mid in the scheme of things. And my view of Portland as a team doesn't really change off of this game. I think they're 19th in net rating this year. They were 16-33 versus teams that are 500 plus. And you kind of see exactly why. They can be above average defensively, but the offense around Deni is pretty damn questionable and frankly, just below average overall. But then if Deni is just able to get into the paint whenever he wants, he can save the team. And that's what he did. He just put them on his back in this one. And the Suns had no answers. Truly. It just felt like the entire game he was able to completely bully his way to the rim. And then it's not just the scoring, the finishing, the foul drawing, also the interior passing from him, the lob passing, really damn good. Fourth quarter, he gives you 14 points and 3 assists with 1 missed shot. He's just a real handful to deal with coming downhill. He leads the league in drives per game. He leads the league in assists per game off of drives, and he's so explosive, and he's got such good feet, and he's so strong and big that if you don't really load up or if you don't beat him to his spot, you're kind of hopeless. And then even if you do beat him to his spot, he might Euro around you, or he might just go through you and still draw a foul call because defensive players just never get the benefit of the doubt. And then also I thought he was doing a nice job of leveraging his size and sometimes backing down and just shooting these little touch shots over these smaller players. He was just very, very comfortable and in control in this game. The Suns just could not guard him. One star had to seize control of this game late for either side, and Deni was the one who went ahead and did it. And so that's kind of going to be like the entire challenge for the Spurs defense. And I do think they're a pretty well-built defense to deal with Deni because they have one Victor Wembanyama in terms of rim protection, but he's like the one guy who you're really worried about offensively in this matchup. But if you have nothing for him, like the Suns had nothing for him, then he can just put you to bed. And that's what he did in this one. So it's pretty ugly for the Suns. It's a pretty bad loss just because, like you said, once they seized control with that late third quarter, early fourth quarter run, like you felt like the game should have been theirs. And they just weren't good in the clutch. They couldn't get stops. Book didn't really step up. And they didn't really have much three-point shooting going for them in this game. It's a bad loss. It's a very bad loss when you're on your home court and you've got that lead late and you've got the momentum and you squander it all.
I think that's a really good point about Phoenix and their roster build and what they need to do going into next season. And obviously, this could be a blanket statement, you say, for a lot of NBA teams. I thought the three-point discrepancy for them in this game was huge. Yeah. They shot 22 fewer threes than Portland. Phoenix attempted 25 on the night. Portland attempted 47. And Portland also made 8 more than them. In any individual game, when you're getting beat by 24 in the three-pointer category, that is a huge discrepancy that's almost impossible to make up for. And it's pretty obvious when you look at the team, like Gillespie is kind of their one and only, like, really high-volume kind of three-point shooter, right? Like Dylan Brooks can get hot, you know.
Well, not having Grayson Allen matters on that front. I mean,
true. Very true.
The Suns were one of the better three-point shooting teams in the league this year. Like, they did get their volume up for sure. It was a big part of their offensive success. I just think in this game, a lot of that was a product of them not really creating deep penetration. And then it's like when a guy like Jalen Green was getting into the paint, he just doesn't look to pass.
Yeah.
He just doesn't create shots. Like, they just weren't really creating catch and shoot three looks. It was mostly like, okay, Brooks going one-on-one, Book going one-on-one, Green going one-on-one, and that wasn't good enough offense ultimately.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I think Gillespie and Allen are also so solely responsible for bringing that every single night. If it is that initial penetration, if it's them spotting up or the swing passes around the horn to generate those shots, like just not having those guys out there is a big difference too, and it really mattered in this individual game, and then Portland also beat them on the glass. But I also understand why Phoenix was going with those lineups too, right? Because Portland is such a big physical squad. Like, you have to match that, and obviously when you're going with some of those bigger, more physical lineups, you're going to sacrifice some of that on the back end. But, I mean, if I'm being quite frank, I think either of these teams were kind of marching to their death, but we'll get into that on next episode.
Well, I agree, and also I think whoever lost this game is going to be a clear underdog to the Clippers. Like, this is why it's tough for the Suns. And again, I mean, first of all, the Clippers have to win tonight, and then the Clippers would have to beat the Suns again. But just on paper, I think LA's been playing much better basketball than the Suns recently. I think they're the better team. They have a Kawhi Leonard, which is a big deal. And just overall, since January 1st, they've been winning like 2/3 of their games. They've been a really good basketball team. And so the Suns had this really good start to the season, and overall it's been sort of this prideful season of them like making the most of what they have and getting career contributions from all these different guys and finding a new coach who's really good and doing all of this in a season where like they had to try to be competitive because they don't have their own pick, and in the fallout of all the KD stuff. Like, it's been a cool season for the Suns. I do think it might kind of end though in pretty disappointing fashion here, because I do view them as an underdog versus the Clippers. So this game, I will say, did have the feist. It did have the vibes of like bad blood, playoff animosity, intensity. Dylan Brooks and Deni were like trying to out-angry one another. They were trying to see who could get angrier. Deni just screaming at the refs the entire game. Dylan Brooks, every time that like they cut to him on camera, it's like he's doing the LeBron Heat like lock in meme, like head down, like eyes like looking sort of demonically focused. Like Dylan Brooks just lives in that. Yeah. But that's just Dylan Brooks, I guess, man. There was one time where like He lowered his shoulder, laid out Jeremy Grant, somehow got the foul call, and then they show him in the replay, and he's like biting the ball with like excitement and emotion, and it's like, Dylan, just chill a little bit, bro.
That's why Dylan Brooks was a cornball, man. Like, don't get me wrong, the guy have you ever seen his pregame routine?
Yeah.
And
he's a freak.
for pod listeners, this isn't going to do justice, but he just is like this.
Yeah. Bro is always trying to lock in.
He's lock-in maxing. He just gives you the death stare. And but it's not more...
He pokes bears.
It's not really intimidating as much as it is, like, unsettling and unhinged. And I more so wonder, has this guy taken his medicine today?
Yeah.
You know,
and the
something
answer
like
is
that.
No, he's definitely off his meds. But to be fair, Dylan Brooks was actually pretty good in this game. Like, second half scoring was really good. Forced some big steals. He and Royce O'Neal both. Again, that's where, like, once they locked in defensively, it was like, oh, yeah, this Portland offense just outside of Deni. They don't have any juice. The shooting with them, very inconsistent. Like, they put up a lot of threes, but I think they're 28th in three-point percentage. And so it just felt like they were locked in defensively. They were forcing turnovers. They were getting a bunch of stops. And then that's why it's kind of crazy that, again, they just let Deni take over this game. And Denny's really good. Denny's really hard to guard. But it's like, at some point, are you not just going to start sending some outright doubles and, like, dare somebody else to beat you? It just felt, like, too comfortable where it's like, oh, he's having everybody clear out. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Like, he's probably not just going to absolutely bully one of these guys one-on-one, or like, oh, he's got a Jalen Green matchup right now. Jalen Green is guarding him at the top of the key. Yeah, we probably don't need to double or force the ball out of Denny's hands or anything. Like, Jalen will probably get a stop one-on-one. It's like you're just begging him to get an and one every time when you let him attack the paint with those sort of advantages.
I concur. If you had to describe Dylan Brooks in one word, what would you say?
I would say freak.
I would say
Psycho. Feral, yeah, actually, that's a better one, Logan. That's very, very beautiful language from you, as usual. This episode is brought to you by Fabletics. I am wearing Fabletics head to toe as we speak, guys. I really, really love this stuff. I've got my hoodie on. I've got my sweatpants on. You can't see them, but you have to believe me. I step outside. There's a high percentage chance I'm wearing Fabletics head to toe. People see me. They say, are you wearing Fabletics head to toe? I say, yes, I am. My girlfriend to my right, she's imaginary. She's also wearing Fabletics head to toe. We look the freaking balls, man, because this stuff is fantastic. The quality is excellent. It's so comfortable, and it's so versatile. You can wear it to the gym. You can wear it on a beautiful sunny day out. You can cozy up with your hoodie. If you've got Fabletics options in your closet, you don't have to think about what you're going to wear for the day. You just open it up, boom. Someone's going to call out to you. You throw it on. You're comfortable. You look good. It's the best.
Shop now at Fabletics.com/nerdsesh to get 70 to 80% off everything when you sign up as a new VIP. Take a quick style quiz and be sure to select NerdSesh when prompted to unlock your 70 to 80% off. This is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Again, that's Fabletics.com/nerdsesh for 70 to 80% off everything as a new VIP.
Let's move on to some of these big playoff questions that we have. These are not specifically focused on any series because obviously we're doing all of our series previews and we've already done 4 of those if you haven't seen them in our last episode. And then tomorrow we're going to be previewing the 2-7 series once those are set. And we're going to go through and just sort of fill in our predictions throughout the playoffs and ultimately pick who we believe the champion is going to be, even though the 1 versus 8 matchups aren't going to be set in stone because that doesn't happen until late Friday night. But today we're just asking some sort of broad questions that we have going into the playoffs. And I want to start with this one, Logan. Who do you think has the most to prove this postseason?
I've got a few teams marked down here that I think you can argue, but there is one team that sits above the mountain, I think, with the most to prove in these playoffs. And for me, it's got to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the reason I go with them is just the mere fact that they've made the playoffs in 3 straight seasons. This is a team that's coming off of a 64-win dominant regular season last year. It was the second-best single-season record in Cleveland history. And yet, despite all this, they have yet to reach the Eastern Conference Finals. They've won just 5 games in each of the last 2 postseasons. But most importantly is the fact that they made a midseason move this year that pushed their chips more into the center of the table and accelerated their timeline, right? That's kind of been the appeal of this Cleveland team over the past 3 seasons, is the fact that they've got this uber young core with a superstar right now in Donovan Mitchell, but surrounding you could have seen the internal development of guys like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland that could have extended this timeline. Now, you've made the trade for James Harden, and it seems like not that Cleveland is backed into a corner, but they've got to prove that this group works this postseason. Because if they don't, if they get bounced in the first round, which I think is highly unlikely, but if they don't reach the Eastern Conference Finals, I think the Eastern Conference Finals is the bar for Cleveland this season. It is like a prove it, we can get there. This core works. There is something here in the foundation to prove that maybe this is an Eastern Conference champion in the future and a potential NBA Finals contender. And I think they have to prove it this season, because if they don't, say they get bounced in the second round this year, let's go with that hypothetical for right now, you're just kind of stuck taking a deep, hard, long look in the mirror and going, you're looking at all of your stars and wondering, does this work? And it's not really about one specific guy, but it's more so about all of this together. You're asking, do Evan Mobley and Jared Allen work together? A question that we've been asking for a long time. Is it worth it moving Mobley to the 5 spot where you would potentially get more value out of him as your sole center, and sacrificing Jared Allen for more of a big kind of wing type that makes everything else work altogether? That's one of the questions. Another one of the questions is James Harden the guy? Can James Harden deliver and give us everything we need in his role at this stage in his career? Because it's not, can James Harden give us 35 and 8 prime James Harden? It's, can Harden give us 20 and 7 and not be debilitating on defense? Can he step up in the big moments of games and deliver what he needs to? And then this is less so of a question to me, because I really believe in this guy at a high level. Some people, and maybe depending on how and what happens with Cleveland in this playoff run, is Donovan Mitchell the guy? To me, that is at the bottom of this totem pole at questions that would arise out of a Cleveland letdown postseason. But I know a lot of people have been critical of Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
And they are skeptical of whether he can be the lead guy, the best guy on a championship team. To me, that's at the bottom, because I just think... let me get on my soapbox for a minute here.
Sure.
I think Donovan Mitchell gets like the shortest stick out of any superstar that maybe I've ever seen in the league, or at least in the league today is what I'll go with. It's deeply frustrating to me watching this guy churn out elite offense.
Would you say? Deeply disturbing?
Deeply disturbing. Deeply disturbed.
I agree.
The guy gives you 28 and 5 or 6 every single year, man, and he turns out elite offense after elite offense, and then every single time in the playoffs, if a guy is injured or something, everybody looks and goes, oh, man, it's got to be Donovan Mitchell that's a problem. I think Mitchell is the guy that I would worry about least in this roster build. I think he is so imperative to this Cleveland formula and so important to everything they do. But to me, with the moves that they've made this year to accelerate this timeline, them hitting their head consistently on this ceiling in the playoffs, like, again, there are some other teams that I'll give a shout-out to in here in a minute. The obvious pick for me about the team that has the most to prove in the playoffs is Cleveland, and I think they, at bare minimum, have to get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year.
A 7-game loss to the Pistons, and you're not moved. You're like, all right, we need to really shake shit up.
Oh, my gosh. I like Detroit a lot. I'm pulling the pin, and we're throwing the grenade into the roster, I think, if they lose to Detroit.
Interesting.
You don't feel that way?
No. Well, I think Detroit's really good. I think the Cavs are my favorite in that series for all the reasons that we hashed out when we had Tyler on. And I do think the expectations for them are different just in terms of the pressure. Like, Detroit is a very young team. This is their first year being awesome, right? And so you are still expecting some more internal progression, whereas for the Cavs, it's like, okay, this is now the 4th year that you're going to be in the playoffs with mostly the same core, except now there's actually a lot more urgency because you traded Darius Garland, your young star guard, for James Harden in his mid-30s. Like, for all those reasons, I think there's just more pressure on Cleveland to win the series, but I don't know. It would kind of have to depend on how the series went, I guess, for me to make my final assessment of that. But there's definitely so much pressure on them. I do think they're the right choice. And I think a lot of people would make it about Donovan Mitchell. To me, he already won the meet off, so that matters a lot in terms of his legacy, and he's kind of covered on that front. But also, like, I just agree with you. I think Donovan Mitchell is a guy who walks into the playoffs and over the last couple of years gives you 30 a game on 58% true shooting, and for so much of this regular season was backpacking the Cavs offense, even when Garland was out and Garland was hurt, and is just like a truly awesome offensive engine and one of the most effective playoff scorers in basketball. And you can nitpick some of the stuff about the playmaking. I do think that he's a pretty good passer, but sometimes can get in that very score first mindset, isn't an elite playmaking guard. And then people talk about the defense. I think it's really only an issue when it's in the context of him playing with a bad defensive guard like a Garland or a Harden. I think that Donovan Mitchell's defense is fine. And I think you see that because in the minutes when he's on the court without a Garland or a Harden over the last couple years, the Cavs are a pretty good team defense, and they're still an awesome offense because he does that much to elevate you on that side of the ball. So I just think that he's an easier player to build around than he often gets credit for. And if you do really put the ideal team build around him, right? If you do emphasize wing and perimeter defense, and instead of putting an offensively slanted guard alongside him, you just put a lot of shooting alongside him and you have one kick-ass big, like, I think Donovan Mitchell can lead to some really elite teams in that construction. So I definitely look more at James Harden because I think this is the guy who they made the move for. This is the guy who has had so many playoff questions in recent years and a lot of struggles, particularly in the latter halves of playoff series. So is he going to justify you moving off of Garland to bring him in? Is he actually an upgrade? Is he a substantial upgrade, or was that sort of short-sighted? And then I do look at Allen and Mobley too, and especially Allen, and it's like, all right, we're not going to keep like hitting our head on the ceiling with this whole thing of Jared Allen not really like holding up his end of the bargain in the playoffs. There's going to come a point where, like, if he is not really good in this postseason, I think they are going to pivot to more of a Mobley at the 5. Let's max out the wing defense and shooting around Mitchell and Mobley. Let's bring in, like you're saying, a more imposing, physically power forward who can bring us some of that toughness and some of that physicality and some of that mismatch attacking that we don't currently have. Because I mean, the double big stuff is good. Having two really good centers for 48 minutes is very good. But at some point, even though the Allen contract is favorable for Cleveland, like, you just have to wonder, are we really getting the most out of the talent on this team, or do we need to make a pivot?
Definitely. And the Harden point to me could be the most disastrous one if they get bounced, because then I think a lot of people in the offseason, the prevailing sentiment is probably going to be, one, did they, blow their wad? Should they have held on to Garland? And also, not only just should they have held on to him for the purpose of the extending the timeline and, him getting better off of internal development, it's also going to bring into question, did they sell, and I think this is a pretty easy no, but did they sell Darius Garland at his absolute highest value?
No.
And that's where you would go, they didn't at all. They got back old-ass James Harden, where if you had dealt him in the offseason before, and, who would have known that he would have still been dealing with all these injuries. But with how he's been playing with the Clippers, you could come back and go, well, damn, if they had held on to him and they were going to get bounced regardless in the playoffs, they could have just held on to Garland, waited for his stock to tick back up, and then moved him in the offseason for a better package. And so there is a world where, like I said, anything less than the Eastern Conference, and this is going to have some really bad ramifications, and there's going to be a lot of criticism pointed towards Cleveland's way.
And this is why I didn't like the move for Garland. It's because it puts so much pressure on this year. And, like, the Cavs were already dealing with that. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, we have to address this stuff, but we have 26-year-old Darius Garland as a chip that we can figure out how we want to proceed with, and somebody who, like, again, as you said, they did deal at an all-time low in value. Now it's like, you need Harden to deliver, and you need this team to make a deep run. And Harden, very, very good offensive player. I do think that he makes this team a bit better than they were with Garland, but also Like, the problem for this team in the Harden minutes has been that their defense has been really bad when he and Mitchell share the floor. Like, their defensive backcourt has been as problematic as ever. And I think there are more ways to work around Harden defensively because he just has such better size than Garland, but they haven't really seen that bear fruit yet. And so the playoffs are going to be a big test on that front of needing him to be that awesome second offensive option and needing him to be less of a problem defensively than Garland was. I am very optimistic about the Cavs. I think I consistently have been. Like, I think they are just such a talented team. But if that talent doesn't translate to a deep playoff run, then I think there's going to be some internal crisis. And I think maybe that's part of the reason that they made the Garland trade is maybe they're feeling internal pressure from Donovan Mitchell of this isn't good enough. We need to make changes. We need to take the leap. So I think there's a ton of pressure on the Cavs to prove something. I also think, for me at least, there's a lot of pressure on the Knicks. And maybe some people will say, okay, but they made the conference finals last year. And I get that. But they did get waxed in the conference finals. And I just still have major questions about, like, if this core really works, if this is a core that has a championship ceiling, and I lean on the side of no. And the biggest reason for that is what we talk about a lot, but it's just like the fundamental major defensive issues that are posed by having Brunson and Cat on the floor together, having two big weak points who can be attacked. And then I also think, like, for Cat, you just have to prove that you are, like, a legit high-level second option. You also have to prove that you're worth your $60 million price tag, and I'm honestly not optimistic about him doing that. But then it's like, how are you going to trade him? I don't think he's a movable player. So that's where I do think the Knicks are sort of stuck. But if things go really badly this time around, if they lose first round to the Hawks, like, I think they would have to address some pretty big questions. And I also do think there's a burden on Brunson. Like, I think there is a burden on Brunson to show that, hey, my great offense outweighs my horrific defense by enough that you feel like I can be the number one guy on a championship team or like a team that can make the finals or whatever. And I'm really not convinced of that when you look at how problematic his minutes have been for them defensively over the last couple of years, and this team being better with him off the court statistically over the last couple of years, just because their defense is so much worse when he's on. Like, it's not about, can Brunson give you 28 to 30 a game on 57% true shooting in the playoffs? Because we know that he can do that. It's, can he cross the line where you're like, okay, he was so awesome offensively and he wasn't a disaster defensively. That is the guy. Like, that is truly the franchise building block. And I'm not really optimistic about any of this stuff for the Knicks, honestly. But I think there's some big questions that we're going to get some answers to in these playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. The Knicks would be the second team that I marked down as well, and it's exactly for what you said. I mean, it's the fourth straight season for the Knicks making the playoffs. They've had two runs to the second round, and they're coming off of their Eastern Conference Finals run. And I think a lot of the expectation for Knicks fans is, okay, bang, hit the wall, ESF, hit the wall, ESF, hit the wall, ECF. Next step, logically, is the NBA Finals. And anything less than an ECF run is going to be a disappointment. I feel the same way about what I said about Cleveland, about the Knicks. And then that is where I think you have to have some big-time conversations, because it's, especially if it's in the way that they lost, like you're mentioning, to Indiana, where you're getting exploited for these major issues defensively, and you just can't answer for them. But also because of the hellish cap situation that the Knicks are in. I mean, dude, you've got $170 million allocated to four guys. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, too, when you come down to it, I think the worst case scenario would be if Cat balls out, or you can't. My thing is, you just can't move Cat. I think Brunson's the most valuable player here. I don't know who the hell wants this. You're going to pay him $57 million next year. Then you're going to pay him $61 million because he's not turning down that player option. Yeah. And I just think it'd be a lot easier if you could move off of his money and then, you know, shuffle around some of these pieces. You move some of his salary to some bench guys. You can get another star in here alongside a guy like Brunson. Basically, the crux of this issue for the Knicks is the fact that there's not an easy way out of this whatsoever if it blows
No.
up, because you are so dug into this core, and you've got some immovable guys here. And honestly, I think McCall is overpaid. I think he's an overpaid player in terms of salary. I also think the Knicks just gave up way too much to go out there and go get him.
100%.
That also hamstringed them in terms of the flexibility they could do. They don't have any picks left to attach to these guys if you wanted to make another move. I think Brunson and Anunoby are, accurately paid. I think it's about what I would pay for them.
I mean,
market
Brunson's
value.
contract is pretty damn good, even as somebody who's not the highest on him. He just took a
I agree.
discount for the team.
But Bridges and Cat are problematic in terms of their salary. And then, again, like we've mentioned, they gave up all of their future draft capital to go and get a guy like Bridges. The Knicks are just kind of stuck, it seems, if this doesn't work out this season. And I think it's more than likely that they don't get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. They don't get to the NBA Finals. I think the Knicks are very likely to have, again, another offseason of some very tough questions, and maybe another offseason where they don't really do anything.
Yeah, well, it's tough because even though I felt like last year we already saw the writing on the wall with the limitations of this core, that would be a very pessimistic take. The front office can't actually do that. They can't go, okay, this one year it ended like this, and they made the Eastern Conference Finals, but they really went all in on this group in the 2024 offseason. And I do think we're probably going to look back at that as being a mistake on multiple fronts, which is not what I thought at the time. But seeing how problematic the Cat Brunson defensive issues are and how much they struggled to convincingly win the minutes those guys share the court because of that, how much they gave up for Mikal Bridges, which has just completely hamstrung their ability to make any sort of trades because they have no draft picks that they can trade, I think until 2032 or something, 2033. They've traded all their first round picks that they can. And then at the same time, you lose Julius Randle, who was on a really pretty good value contract because he's getting paid half as much as Cat, essentially. You lose Dante DiVincenzo, who winds up going and signing one of the more team-friendly contracts in the NBA and was really good. You lose Isaiah Hartenstein, who was just a really good basketball player. He got paid a lot, but it's if you had the totality of that, if you had the flexibility of the Randall contract, if you had the contributions of a really good shooter and good two-way player like Dante, if you had the ability to still have two really good center looks with Hartenstein or Mitchell Robinson, and you had all your draft picks, I just think you'd be in a better spot as a basketball team, significantly so, if they could have taken the exact opposite approach to that offseason versus what they actually did. So, yeah, I think this is a real prove-it postseason for the Knicks. I think that was going to be the case no matter what this year from my perspective. I do also think, speaking of Julius Randle and the trade, I think this is a big postseason run for him just because I think the Timberwolves, if they have a disappointing postseason, if they lose in the first round, which is very likely because they have such a difficult first-round matchup, I could see them doing some reevaluating and saying, okay, yes, we've made the Eastern Conference Finals twice, once with Cat, once with Randle, but is this guy a championship-level second option, or do we need to do some maneuvering? Do we need to reevaluate sort of our priorities around Anthony Edwards? And I think Randle is the guy who they would look at there because Gobert, for all of his offensive flaws, so elite defensively, so fundamental to them being so good on that side of the ball. Also probably immovable considering his age and contract. Although, I don't know. Rudy Gobert, he is very, very valuable for what he does. But Randle is the guy where you can see it sort of going south if he has a cold jump shooting run, if he has some of the questionable decision-making and turnovers that can get him at times. I can definitely see the Timberwolves sort of taking a hard look in the mirror on the Julius Randle front.
That's interesting. I didn't write down Minnesota. I wrote down.
Well, it's
Denver.
not Minnesota. It's Julius Randle.
Well, I wrote down the Nuggets as an option for this question too, and the only reason I wrote down Denver was just because I think that not that they have to, because it's we've seen Jokic climb the mountain and Murray, and we've seen it work. My take was just this is the best Nuggets team that has ever been around Jokic in his entire career, and that's why I think it's a prove it thing. Is it's like also interrelated with that is just like kind of this interesting crossroads that we find ourselves at in the future of the NBA, and what I mean by that is Oklahoma City's not going anywhere. They have such an elite roster foundation. San Antonio and Wemby aren't going anywhere, and like these seem like the two kind of top dogs, young teams, up and coming, young superstars on their roster, MVP candidates, great structure throughout the bottom of their rosters. You're seeing them kind of take off as these top dogs in the Western Conference for presumably, and you can never get too far ahead of yourselves in talking about future conversations, but presumably for the next 5 to 10 years. And then you go back and you look at a team like Denver, much older roster, older superstars, but the best roster that Jokic and Murray have ever had around them. It just seems like this individual postseason could be more important when we look back at this for Denver than for OKC or San Antonio, merely because those two teams are obviously going to have more cracks at it over the next 5 to 10 years, more so than Denver.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Like, Denver is really in this tough spot where, like, obviously they had their moment, the 2023 title, and then 2024, I think that's the one that they look at and they're like, ooh, maybe we should have been back in the finals that time around, right? Losing to Minnesota in 7, and then obviously Dallas advances to the finals. But I think Denver would have liked their chances in that matchup against Dallas. And then last year it was just like, okay, now the Thunder have leveled up, right? And they're just clearly top dogs in the West. And now the Spurs have joined them in that class. Obviously not as proven, right? Not as dominant as OKC, haven't won the title, whatever. But again, when you talk about the trajectory, it's like, why are those teams not going to keep getting even better, if not at least staying every bit as dominant for a long time? And so it's not that the window has absolutely closed on Denver, but it's gotten pretty scary when you're looking at a top tier of the West that is that good right now and projects to stay that good for a long time. So this maybe could be an opportunity for them to cash in and at least say, like, let's get San Antonio before they're at their apex as a basketball team, because they are going to keep getting even better. And then you run into the Thunder problem, which I think has been such a challenging matchup for them. But if Denver gets to the Western Conference Finals, I think it's viewed as a success of a season. And I think they've built an awesome team. And again, it's hard for me to look at that outcome and be like, oh man, Denver didn't deliver this year, because I think they absolutely would have. And I think they have built the best team that they've had around Jokic. And I think so many things have gone right for them outside of health. But just when you look at like this basketball team on paper at their best, there's a lot that is so awesome about them. And that's why, again, I think you almost have to look back with hindsight and say 2024 is a missed opportunity that hurts. Last year, where maybe if they had actually been able to make some of these moves they made this offseason previously, right? If they could have just put together a better bench, if they could have had a Tim Hardaway Jr., like just building out a more complete roster, then maybe they could have gotten over the hump against OKC. And maybe that could have been a year that they were back in the NBA Finals. And it's hard to build a championship caliber team, but when you have a Nikola Jokic, one of the greatest players in the history of this game, like, you're expected to win multiple titles. You're expected to make the finals multiple times. And now you're looking at this window where Jokic is as good as ever, but he is 31 years old, and Wemby is 22, and Shea is 27, and those cores are super young, and they're incredible. And I think Denver's a good shout. Like, I think they're so good, and yet it's almost like, not to be pessimistic, but what do they really have to show in terms of playoff success since the 2023 title? Like, they lost a couple of hard-fought 7-game series to really good teams, but losing in the second round just isn't the expectation when you have a player like Jokic playing at this level on your roster. I also think out west, the Houston Rockets, now I don't expect them to prove much of anything. I'm very low on them, but I do think they have to try to justify the fact that, hey, we traded for Kevin Durant. And I think there's like a number of key players on this roster who have to answer some questions about their games, Şengün, Amen Thompson. Like, there's just so many questions about the Rockets. Ultimately, I can't really see an outcome where they even put a scare into OKC in the second round, and they're probably going to win the first round just because they're drawing the completely decimated by injuries Lakers. So I don't really envision an outcome where like the Rockets impress me or prove anything, but there's definitely a lot of pressure on them. And if they do somehow lose first round, then I don't even know what they'll do. Probably turn on each other, Lord of the Flies style, and probably sacrifice KD for his DMs, and it would just be chaos.
The Rockets were the last team I wrote down, and I think you make a good point. I think it's less to do with what Houston does as a team, and more so it is about what the actual individuals give you and how that's going to structure your decision-making about the roster construction for this team moving forward. Because ultimately, like, we know what's going to get them, and they're not at full health with Adams and Van Vliet. I will say this, too. I think when Houston gets discussed, that routinely gets overlooked way too often when talking about that team. Just that everybody always tries to blame KD, and I don't like KD as a human being and as a locker room leader either. But like, so much of the letdown of what this season has been for Houston has had to do with their injuries, and less so do with like the actual play of Kevin Durant.
They are Adams, Van Vliet, and like one good 3-point shooting wing away from being like a top 5 contender, I think we would say. So totally that does matter, but it doesn't really change the public perception, fair or not, and sort of the pressure cooker that this team does have right now. And also, like, KD is 37, so every year that you can't cash in does matter a lot, and the Rockets aren't going to cash in this year. Like, they're just not nearly good enough with those guys being out.
I think you're right, though. I think we are going to get some clarity on some of these supporting pieces and what the Rockets need to do in terms of just the subtle maneuvering of the rest of this roster. But, yeah, I think after this playoff run, my conclusion is going to be they shouldn't have traded Jalen Green, and he would have made all the difference this year, if I'm being honest.
Future and current and eternal NBA superstar Jalen Green, Logan. Okay, so those teams, those guys have the most to prove, Logan. Who do you think is going to prove a lot in the sense that their stock is going to climb the most after these playoffs? Who do you think the world is going to be higher on come this June?
So I've got two groups written down of assorted guys of teams that I think could all have a really good run. But there is one player for one team that I actually do have penciled out, and that's a guy that we have supported all year long. We've been very big advocates for. I think the world is going to be clamoring about A.J. Mitchell at the end of these playoffs.
I knew where you were going, and I loved it.
He was the first guy that I thought of when preparing for this question, and I think he is the no-brainer candidate for a few reasons. One, coming into this year, we talked about this during Most Improved, relatively unknown, was not a big part of this rotation last season, really came on in the absence of Jalen Williams and provided a really imperative role to them during the regular season. So I think AJ has climbed to a point throughout this regular season for people who have been tapped in all year long. I think people know about AJ. But for people who are really tuning into the playoffs, the casual NBA fan, I just think he brings such a valuable skill set to this OKC roster in terms of the playmaking, the ball handling, the scoring at every single level, but also the complementary off-ball scoring that he brings, and the energy in the defense. He's just such a complete basketball player.
Yeah.
And I just think he brings such a valuable role to this team. When SGA is off the court, they need that guy. Dub has been disappointing this season, and especially with my expectations for this OKC team, with this all-time defense, with this elite superstar in SGA, I think OKC is primed to go on this deep playoff run, and I think A.J. Mitchell is primed to be the guy off the bench providing that spark, that scoring punch, that playmaking. And as we've talked about all year long, Carson, I think there's a really high-level chance that OKC is closing with AJ when guys like Dub are struggling. And I just think a lot of people who maybe haven't fully realized what a beast this guy is, I think their eyes are going to be open to this guy's a winner. He's a really impactful role player. But not only that, like I think his numbers could have an uptick too if he gets more burn in the playoffs, where maybe he's up near 18 and 6 a night or something like that, like closer to those kind of thresholds where people are like, wow, this guy's a real winner. He's just such an impactful player. And I think he could be on some big stages too. Western Conference Finals.
Oh, yeah.
NBA Finals. Like, I just think he is going to be vitally, vitally important for the OKC Thunder going on a championship run this season. So I think out of everybody in the playoff field, he was the first guy that I thought of for this question.
I completely agree. He is so damn good. And I'm not trying to take shots at Norman Powell because Norman Powell didn't vote himself an all-star. But I was thinking about this. I'm like, straight up, A.J. Mitchell is a better basketball player than Norman Powell.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like he's the anti-Norman Powell, but okay.
Well, he is, right? Do you disagree with that?
I do agree. I would much rather have A.J. Mitchell on my team. I'm a Norman Powell advocate, but I would much rather have A.J. Mitchell on my team.
Like, A.J. just impacts the game in so many more ways. He's a plus defender. Norm is a negative defender. He's a really good playmaker. Norm is nothing as a passer, basically. He's a better on-ball scorer. He's a better self-creator. Like, AJ is so good. He has been so awesome playing alongside Shea. He's been so awesome carrying the non-Shea minutes. I do think that we'll see him close alongside J-Dub a lot. Like, I think that we will see him close at times instead of a Kaysen or a Dort, or like one of the more defensively focused guards. It's like you want the creation, you want the offensive skill of AJ in some of these big moments, in some of these lineups. He's just an awesome basketball player who pretty much does everything at a high level, like super crafty, gets into the paint a ton, really good finisher, really good floater game, really good passer, plus defender, good feel off ball, all the stuff that you said. I just think he's built for the playoffs. And as I've said, I think the two biggest differences between the Thunder this year and the Thunder last year are Shea getting even better and AJ Mitchell emerging and addressing the biggest need for this team, which was third ball handler, just another good offensive player, period. Like, he is all of that, and he's a really, really damn good one. I wouldn't be surprised if after these playoffs, people are talking about AJ Mitchell as like a top 50 sort of player in the NBA, because I think he's really good, and I think because of just his minutes and because people tend to focus first on the defense and Shea and whatever, like, he hasn't gotten as much attention for being as important and as much of a game changer as he really is. Again, OKC is 49-7 with him, and they ended up going, I think, 15-11 without him, but that's because, I mean, they sat everybody in the last couple games, but like, absolute big-time player. I also think, just to give a little more love to a couple of other guys who I've been glazing all year, Joe Mazzulla and Derek White, I wrote down. I just think it's mind-boggling to me still that Joe Mazzulla is not the favorite for Coach of the Year. I think people don't fully appreciate how much he elevates. Bickerstaff is still the betting favorite last I checked.
Shout out Bickerstaff, man. I think he's a good coach. I really don't think it's close, though.
Yeah, Joe is the best in the game in like every way, pretty much, when it comes to the culture that he's built, when it comes to the baseline scheme and principles and what he emphasizes and how he gets his team to dominate on the margins, when it comes to getting the most out of his talent and some relatively unknown guys, when it comes to like the specifics of in-game coaching and X's and O's stuff and like attacking specific matchups. Like, Joe Mazzulla is the best that there is. And I think when you watch the Celtics in a playoff run and you watch him consistently out-coaching the guy opposite him, I think you're going to just feel his impact and what a difference maker he is. And then there's Derek White Logan, who I think has had such an awesome season and I think has been a first-team all-defense level guy and has also been super important to this offense. I think he's due to get hot from three. Like, Derek White is consistently about a 40% three-point shooter, and he's been like a 33% three-point shooter this year, and has still been crazy impactful. But I do think some people look at the shooting percentages and it holds them back from appreciating, okay, that this guy is completely transformative defensively, that he's such a good passer, that he's so valuable in the possession game because he never turns the ball over, and like all these things that he does for Boston, his willingness to be used as a screener for other perimeter players, good rebounder for his position. Once he starts making 40% of his threes and scoring 18 a game on like good efficiency, I think everybody can appreciate all the things that he does a bit more. And he's just been so vitally important to Boston's formula all year. I'm super high on Boston. I think they're going to make the finals. I think they're a level up from the rest of the East. And I think Derek White is just going to have to get his love for that, because there are certain guys who like they just shine in the playoffs, and they shine when people are watching every second of the games, right? And the stuff that he does that doesn't show up in the box score, now you're seeing when he makes this massive defensive play in X big moment, when he makes this massive high IQ play in X moment. And so I am preparing for more Derek White propaganda.
I have some other Celtics written down. I was surprised you went with Mazzulla and White. I feel like they have gotten a lot of credit
from us
this season.
From the world, not as much as they deserve, I don't think.
That's fair. They're good shouts. I went with a couple of other Celtics players that I think could shine, give an extra burn. And I also, for a theme of this, I also went with teams that, more so I went with teams that I expect to go deeper into the playoffs too, because it's a bit of an exposure thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're just seeing, 15 to 20 games of this guy. You just have more time on the court to really prove it. I went with 3 Celtics. Peyton Pritchard was my first guy, just because I feel like Pritchard has been getting steadily better over the past couple of seasons, but I don't know if he's fully appreciated for how skilled and talented he is. And I just feel like in a big spot in a big game late in the fourth quarter, Pritchard could give you 15. He could just rattle off 12-point, 15-point quarter, and everybody's, oh my God, he's the talk of the town for that night in NBA basketball. I also think Neemias Queta has been awesome this year. I feel like he could be pivotal in terms of swinging a game defensively on the glass or on the interior. And again, for people who didn't watch this year, I feel like maybe haven't fully appreciated what he does for this Boston team. And then the last guy, shout out him. I didn't think he was an NBA player, and I was just wrong on him, and it's my implicit anti-white bias. Baylor Shireman. I'm serious, man. I really think that, and it's not going to be like Pritchard. It's not going to be a 12, 15-point, he's carving up, he's dicing up an on-ball defender. It's going to be, this guy knocked down 3 threes in 2 minutes in a third or fourth quarter and swung a tide of a game. But Shireman is a really good role player for this Celtics team, and I feel like in a big spot could hit a couple of big shots. And what I think I underestimate, he's got size and he's got skill and shooting touch, and I feel like any of those guys can play and give you minutes in the NBA today, but he has played so much basketball in his career at this point. He is such an experienced basketball player, and he's played in such high-stakes environments that I feel like he can play in a big stage, and he's not going to fear the moment, and he's going to deliver when the chips are down. So I think any Celtics player, honestly, would be a good shout because they all provide their unique value. But Pritchard, Queta, and Shireman would be the guys that I look at and think that those guys in a pivotal third or fourth quarter, big kind of spot could just deliver and be the talk of the town for a stretch. So, yeah, those would be my picks.
I'm with you on the first two. I don't know about Shireman. I think he's solid. I also think there's a world where, like, he's getting DNPs in the playoffs, depending on the matchup, because I think about him versus, like, the Thunder, and I'm like, all right, Shea is going to try to bring him into the action and attack him every time that he's on the floor. And then offensively, he might be overwhelmed by that level of athleticism and pressure. And, like, I do think sometimes I worry about guys who are fighting an uphill battle athletically when you go into the playoffs and you can sort of become a target of these super athletic teams. And, like, he competes defensively. He's fine. But again, like, elite perimeter creators are going to target him. And the Celtics just have a lot of depth guys who they can turn to if he is struggling. But I'm with you on the Queta love. He's been so good this year. And I don't know if he's really going to get more appreciated this year just because he doesn't really do sexy things out there, but, like, he's a real quality basketball player. And then Pritchard, I think already he gets some hype because he's a swaggy white boy, because he hits, like, these super deep threes, because he does play for the Celtics. He has won a championship. Even going back to, like, college, was just a really prominent player. But I do think he's, like, legit really good. I do think he's an offensive weapon. And I do think, like you said, there are going to be moments, there are going to be quarters, there are going to be halves that, like, he takes over, because I mean, sometimes he's just unguardable. He's such a good isolation scorer. He's a lethal pull-up three-point shooter, but the short mid-range game with him is so damn good. The handle is awesome. Like, I'm definitely pro Peyton Pritchard. Other than that, I want to shout out a couple of rookies, man. I'd like to say Khan because I love Khan, and I think Khan is very underappreciated, and I think a lot of people take for granted what he did this season, and he's not going to win Rookie of the Year, it looks like, even though he had such an amazing offensive season for a rookie. I don't know that the playoffs are going to be the atmosphere in which he shines, because I do think facing, again, like if it's Detroit, that's tough. A team that is that athletic that can switch at that level. But nevertheless, it's like his ability as a movement shooter against contests is so special. And as he's been in this little slide, like I still feel good every time a Khan shot goes up, right? I mean, he curls around a pin down, and if he just has a sliver of space, it's like, yeah, I think that's going in, and I know he can comfortably get that shot off. So some of them have just been, barely missing off back iron, whatever. But I think he'll find more of a rhythm. I think Khan is really, really good. I think Dylan Harper, though, is probably the guy who is more likely to like really shine, because he hasn't gotten as much love because he hasn't been as big a role. But my God, he's been in amazing form recently. And if he keeps hitting the threes, again, at low volume, but at the clip that he's been, or even close to that, right? He's not going to keep making 50% of his threes like he has been for the last couple months, but 40% of his open threes. He just does so much good stuff, lives in the paint, like uniquely mature offensive guard for being a rookie. And I'm really excited to see him in the playoffs because I do think that he can swing games. And like you said, Logan, in the Sixth Man of the Year conversation, you liked him more as a Sixth Man of the Year candidate than Keldon Johnson, who's probably going to win the award. And I think I agree with that. And I think that Harper is going to have more moments in the playoffs probably.
He's the next guy that I wrote down. I wrote insert Spurs supporting piece the way I did for the Celtics. And Harper's the first guy because he's not a starter. He comes off the bench. He is a rookie, like you mentioned. And he's so uniquely polished for a young player. Like, that's what I just love about Dylan. And another reason, I think, too, to corroborate what we're saying about the credit that he's gotten this year, I remember when we did our building blocks episode, our top 10 players to build around, and Harper was on my list. And I had one of my friends that I play basketball with, he slid up on my story and he said, do you really think Dylan Harper is a better player than Jalen Johnson? And I told him, I said, no, not necessarily right this second. Like, I would probably take Jalen Johnson. I think he impacts the game a little bit more. But I said, I see the superstar upside with him, and that's why I would have him above a guy like Jalen Johnson. And like you're saying, he has been he's so just ahead of where you would expect a rookie player to be at, and what he can do contributing in a winning context immediately is phenomenal. And I think you could very well see those superstar flashes in these playoffs this season.
Yeah, post All-Star break, dude, over 13 points, over 4 assists a game on 65% true shooting in 24 minutes a game. Off the bench for a team that was unbeatable, for a team that, oh my God, dude, I looked this up the other day. In the Harper-Wemby minutes, they're a plus 28 net team. And when he's on the floor without Wemby, like, he's a huge part of their offense still being really good. He doesn't turn the ball over. Like, just an awesome basketball player.
He's damn near untouchable to me, man. I would not give Harper up. I think he's a future stud.
I agree, dude. Like, we're talking about the Giannis Spurs stuff, and coming into the year, I was like, okay, I'd be willing to give up Castle, not Harper, because I think that Harper is so good. And then it was like, whoa, Castle's been really impressive this year. And then I was like, I don't know if you have to move off of one. Like, maybe you do have to move off of Harper. And now I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't give up either of them. Like, shout out to the Spurs for just believing in what they have, because it's unbelievable that they are as good as they are while they're leaning on Dylan Harper, who just turned 20, and Stephon Castle, who's 21, and Victor Wembanyama, who is 22 and is going to be the GOAT. Is there anyone else you want to shout out here? Anybody else you think is gonna shine for the public?
Real quick, while we're on the topic, I've got two other Spurs. Champagny and Vassell, I think, are both guys that I look at that could be really pivotal to them. And for both of them, it's very simple. Harper brings you more distinct value in terms of the on-ball creation off the bench. Them, I just think they could swing games with big shots where you look up and, holy shit, one of them has hit 7 threes this game and completely swung the tide of a game, and they could be the talk of the town. And I just think they kind of get lost in the shuffle a bit. I think Wemby gets a lot of the shine. I think Fox gets a lot of the shine. I think Castle does too. But those guys are vitally important in the shot-making aspects that they bring, and I just think they could have some scoring explosions from behind the arc in the playoffs that get everybody talking about them. And again, like I said, I think they've just kind of been a little bit underappreciated in the Spurs' elite recipe this season.
Yeah. Good shouts. I wonder if Jamal Murray is due for like a lot of love, just because he's a guy who I think like the general public used to be pretty high on because he elevated in the big moments and he's just like so aesthetically pleasing to watch. And then I feel like he sort of became the target of a lot of Nuggets fans' ire over the last couple years as he wasn't like totally holding up his end of the bargain. And now he's just been so awesome this year. I do think the problem is if he is awesome in 2 playoff series and he gets them to the conference finals, then he draws the OKC matchup where he's just so consistently struggled. And it's almost like anybody whose playoff run ends against OKC, it ends with a sour taste in everybody's mouth because it's like, boy, that was ugly because you're facing the best defense of the modern era. But I do think he's just been playing such phenomenal basketball and deserves credit for like totally leveling up as a basketball player this year. And then the last guy I was thinking of in this sort of star range is Jalen Duren. Like, I think I should be higher on Jalen Duren than I was when we ranked our top 30 players. I do think he has real potential to like dominate playoff series in the paint on both ends. I do think what he did when Cade was out was really, really impressive. And he's also just 22 years old. So like when you talk about one of these building blocks and someone who has the ability to like be so impactful in a playoff series, he does really stand out as a candidate to me for a team that obviously has really broken out this season, and he's been a huge part of that.
I think Duren's going to eat. He's his impact floor is just so high. I don't know. I'm so high on him. I didn't even consider him really just because I think Duren rocks, but if he dominates, you know what I mean? Like, dude, he could go into a potential series and get like 13, 14 boards a night. Like,
yeah.
That's
and
just
playoff
destructive.
basketball, man, like playoff physicality, that favors Jalen Duren, the ability to just impose himself like that. So that's going to be pretty fun to see. Okay, let's go back to the negative side of things here, Logan. Who do you think is most on the verge of a blow-up going into these playoffs?
Before we start on this, I have a clarifying question.
Yes.
Do play-in teams count?
If you want to talk about the Orlando Magic, yes, they count.
I think they're the obvious choice, man.
They are.
Right? Like, because I look at these other teams. The next team that I wrote down, we talked briefly about the Knicks, right? I think if you don't get to the ECF, if you hit your head again, but again, like we kind of said, they're kind of stuck, right? Where, I don't know, you'd really have to find a specific trade partner. Yeah. And I think it's a little too muddied for me to really see a way out for the Knicks. The next team I would go after them would be the Cavs. And that I think is a very valid take. And they actually have avenues to maneuver, although they did kind of make a big one earlier with Garland.
Right.
So Orlando sticks out like a sore thumb to me, where it's not so much the supporting cast, where like we always talk about when we talk about the Magic, they have a lot of really good players on their bench that I like in terms of supporting assets, right? If it's an Anthony Black, if it's a De Silva, guys like that, Desmond Bane, right? It all comes back to Paolo and Franz, and I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Let's not call Desmond Bane a supporting piece because he's been the best player on
Well, no,
that
I'm
team
just saying,
this
I think
year.
Bane is, sorry.
He's safe.
Yes, that's exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Bane is a guy that I'm not moving off of because he
Right.
works. And regardless of what big changes you make moving forward, you're like, Bane can slot in and play a winning role.
Yeah.
The two guys that you have issues with are Paolo and Franz. And I'm out. I'm just out on Paolo. And on him becoming a superstar and figuring out how to maximize his value. And I understand he's been playing better basketball in the second half of the season. I just don't think he's a winning basketball player. And I am kind of at this point where these issues that we've talked about with Paolo since he entered in the league, I'm just not so confident in him figuring it out, settling for jump shots, busting his ass on defense and on the boards in the way that he should. Really mismatched attacking. And again, some of these things he's cleaned up, I think, since he's returned. But if Orlando doesn't make the playoffs, and like ultimately too, the strength of this team is the defense. And even that has not been at an elite level this season. And so I just think that Orlando is the team that I look at the most and I go, you don't have a superstar that you really bank in or believe in, or the two guys that you would look at as superstars, they don't fit together. And then the third thing would be they don't have an identity. The identity of this team was the defense, and that has taken a noticeable step back from where they were elite a few years ago. And
yeah,
I think they are the obvious choice to blow it up, to make some big roster-altering decisions. And ultimately, too, the reason that I would go with Orlando, not only because I think that they've hit their head year over and year over, both of these guys are movable. And that's also the big thing is, like, I could see a team talking themselves into buying low on a Paolo or buying low on a Franz, whoever they decide to go with as their guy moving forward. To me, Orlando is the no-brainer choice for this question.
100%. Like, you think about how people were talking about Orlando coming into the year, and it's like, okay, at the least, they're going to win 50 games. They're going to be hosting a playoff series, right? Like, those were sort of the conservative standard expectations. Some people were, like, picking them to make the finals. I mean, I remember Colin Cowherd did that, and it's like, okay, settle down a little bit there. But they made the big move. They traded 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, and they stayed in the exact same place as a basketball team. And that's pretty bad, especially when Bane has actually been really good for them. So it's all about Paolo Franz. If I've got to choose a side in the breakup, I'm going to choose Franz because I just don't think you can deny that he's more impactful at this point. He's easier to envision as like a winning basketball player because he is such a plus defender, because he is a good passer, decision maker, because he does have the ability that he does as one of the elite drivers in basketball. And then it's like, all right, if he can just make the threes at a 36% clip like we've seen him do before, like that's a really good basketball player. Is he a number one? No, but I think he can be a really, really good number two. Paolo, as you said, the decision-making is just so bad. The jump shooting is just so bad. The impact on the possession game with high turnovers and bad offensive rebounding and never forcing steals and being such a mediocre defender. Like, I just don't want to be in the business of trying to build a team around Paolo Banchero at this point. But I definitely don't want to be in the business of trying to build a team around these two guys who just don't work together, who don't complement each other in like any way. We go all the way back to since Paolo entered the league, and in the Paolo minutes with Franz off, they're a -5 net team. In the Franz minutes with Paolo off, they're a +7 net team. And again, that's the encouraging stuff, that they've actually been good in the Franz solo minutes. And when these two guys play together, we've got 4,500 minutes of them being a +1 net team and like an actively bad offense. It just doesn't work. I think we are hurtling towards that inevitable conclusion. And I think this is the point where it's like, all right, we made the move for Bane. We're not just going to sit here on our hands and accept a 45-win season and first-round playoff exit every single year. It's one thing when Franz and Paolo are super young and you haven't made the all-in move and that's your reality and you can say there's a bright future. Like, this team pushed their chips into where the future was supposed to be now. And instead, I think you're more pessimistic about everything with this team than like ever before. So I think it's Orlando. Honestly, I don't even know if there's anyone else really worth discussing. Like you mentioned, the Knicks, the Cavs, right? And those are looming possibilities if they have an underwhelming postseason. For the Magic, it almost feels like an inevitability that at the very least, like maybe they take another route and they're like, Jamal Mosley, you're the problem. You're fired. And they run it back with the Paolo Franz duo for another year. And they say, oh, Franz was hurt this year. And that was the problem. Like, they can probably talk themselves into not breaking up this duo, but I absolutely think that they should. And regardless, we're going to see some major shakeup within this team. And yeah, I don't even know if they're going to get out of the play-in. Like, we'll see. We'll see. The Sixers don't have Embiid, but
I'm still
the vibes are
Philly.
just so bad. Yeah, the vibes
horrible.
are so bad for Orlando.
I mean,
There's so much that is just like oil and water with this team.
I mean, dude, they got spanked by Boston's backups.
Yeah, in a game that they were incentivized to win, and they were trying to win.
Did you see the I thought it was really funny, the salary discrepancy from that game, and they were like,
oh, I can only imagine.
It was like $12 million to $130 million.
Missoula moneyballed them. And that's why we need more Missoula propaganda. The only other team I even considered is like, all right, maybe the Raptors shake things up just because they have like 5 players on really big contracts.
That's not a bad shout. Yeah, just in terms of their allocation.
But it's like, I don't think it would be a blow up. And also, I think all these players are hard to move. It's like, because they're all getting paid so much, Pirtle, not easy to move. I think there's a world where they're like, okay, BI is not the right co-star to have alongside Scotty, but they have committed to BI. They've committed some real money. IQ, I think, is probably safe because he's just pretty good, but he also is overpaid. Like, that's the thing with Toronto. I think they're a solid basketball team, but they do have a lot invested in this core for which the ceiling isn't that high, and so maybe they would be inclined to see if they can make any changes around Scotty to build a team that ultimately does make more sense, that allocates their resources a little bit better. I can see that outcome if they kind of get destroyed in the first round and they're like, all right, what's the point of running that back? Speaking of running it back, Logan, the Thunder are looking to go back-to-back as NBA champions this year. And if they do that, where do they rank among the best iterations of teams that we've seen this century?
Honestly, this is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I think it really depends on how they do it more than anything else. But
Coward, but I agree.
I think that's most important. The teams that I think that I can put above them, well, for sure, the 2010s Warriors, I think, obviously, are going to go number 1. Tentatively, I want to put them at number 3 or 4, and that feels right to me right now with just what they have concretely accomplished or would have accomplished winning another championship this season. The other teams I would go with, I don't think I could put them above the Shaq and Kobe Lakers just yet. I think they would take the cake. The level that Shaq was at, especially when you get into the later years when Kobe picks up the slack. And then I would say the 2010 Spurs I would still put above the Thunder. But that one's closer to me where I could consider them going above them. Where do you come down on those teams?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, what's difficult with the Spurs is the titles are so spread out, right? You've got 99, 03, 05, 07, 14. So when I think about like a short run, because obviously what the Spurs did over those 15 plus years, like it makes them this dynasty, in my opinion. And it all depends on how you define dynasty. Do you define it on like dominance at your peak or the ability to sustain it for a long time? They won 5 titles, but they won those 5 titles across like very dramatically different teams. I'm thinking more about iterations of like a 2-year run, because that's what we have from the Thunder, or a 3-year run, what have you. And at that point, I'm like, yes, absolutely, the Warriors at their best. And then the Lakers from 2000 to 02, I would agree with. But if the Thunder completely dominate in this postseason, I think that's even a conversation that can be opened up, because then it's like, okay, 68 wins last year, top 4 net rating in a single season in NBA history, won the title, wasn't the most dominant postseason, but then come back this year, and if they are better in the ways that I think they're better, and they have a significantly more dominant postseason run, and they were again top 4 in net rating in NBA history this season, then it's like, how do you deny just the dominance of that resume? So I do think, like you said, it depends on how it goes. If it's like, oh, they go a 7 in the conference finals, in the finals, maybe it wouldn't have that feeling. But I'm also looking at how the bracket is shaking out for them, and I'm like, the Thunder easily could not lose a game until the Western Conference Finals, because I think the Clippers are good, but whoever they get in the 8th seed, like, I'm probably going to pick them to sweep. And then if you're getting the winner of Rockets Lakers, like, that's probably a sweep, or like, it feels like the over-under for how many games you should pick them to lose across the first 2 rounds is like 1. And so I think a lot of the perception around this team changes if they just have that like nuclear dominate everybody playoff run. And I think that hinges on just like, if the 3-point shot is really falling because of Shea being the GOAT level scorer, because of this team being the GOAT level defense, because of them having the GOAT transition turnover margin, like, I think they could obliterate the field. And if they do that, it sort of reframes everything about what they've done these last 2 seasons, because the regular seasons are historically dominant. I know they only wound up winning 64 games this year, but that's because, you know, they shut things down. Like, once the 1 seed was wrapped up, they were 56-12 in games that Shea played. Over the last 2 years, they have a plus 16 net rating when Shea is on the court, like, I think they have to be in that top 3 if they repeat. Shout out to the Heat. That the 2012-2013 Heat were the other team that I was thinking of, because in terms of repeats, it's only the Warriors, the Lakers from 2000 to 2002, the Lakers in 2009, 2010, and then the Heat in 2012 and 13 who have done that this century.
I guess I was thinking about like the 2013 to 14 Spurs, but like I guess that, I don't know, they didn't win the championship, so maybe you can. So would you slot them in at 3, a dominant playoff run, or you think they could climb even higher than that just based off these 2 years?
I think if they win the title, they're in the 3 spot. I think if they win the title in dominant fashion, I would open up a conversation for them versus the Lakers. Because, like, the thing that it's easy to forget is you think Kobe and Shaq, they were completely unstoppable.
It's end-to-end with OKC.
It's end-to-end with OKC. Because with the Lakers, 2000, you're dominant in the regular season and then sketchy in the playoffs. 01, not great in the regular season, 56 wins, obliterate the playoff field. That's the best Lakers team. 02, like, you don't have a great regular season, and then you also get pushed 7 by the Kings in a series that they won under very questionable circumstances.
True.
So, like, I think the resume that the Thunder are putting together is pretty insane. And again, maybe it doesn't have some of the typical aesthetics of, oh, we have 2 absolute superstars or whatever, or we have this overwhelming offense. But again, when you're talking about the greatest defense of the modern era and this insane margin they create in all these ways and what Shea can do as an individual, it's like, and this crazy, crazy depth, because although they may not have a duo like some of these other insane teams, what they have in terms of depth is historic. Defensively, it's the best depth we've ever seen. You know me, man. You know how I glaze the Thunder, but it's just like, again, you look at the top 4 teams by net rating in NBA history, and it's the 96 and 97 Bulls and the 25 and 26 Thunder. And I'm honestly kind of bummed they didn't go all out for the regular season wins this year and they had the injuries that they did, because, I mean, if Shea stays healthy all year and they're incentivized to play for every last win, they could have won 68 games again, easily. I think they're better than last year. And so, you know how many teams have won 68 games in back-to-back years? 1, the 96 and 97 Bulls. And if you follow that up with comparable dominance in the playoffs, you just got to give respect to that. You got to give props to that. That's my view.
I think it's a good take. It is going to depend on how they do it, because if OKC just mows through it, I could hear them for being number 2 with what you're saying. Like, I just do think Shaq and Kobe were a little bit ahead of the league, more so than OKC is at this point. But if OKC just mows down the field, then I think it gets shrunk. But also, interrelated with that, too, is that the Lakers also won another championship as well. And I do think the raw title count gives them the edge still right now over OKC. But like we're saying, it is going to depend what happens in all of these series. Like, if they... Do you see a world in which OKC could win the title without ever getting pushed the distance?
Yes.
Could they win
absolutely
every series in 6 or less?
Totally. I mean, like I said, I think the X factor is the 3-point shooting, but if they check that box, then it's like they are a level above everybody else. And I'm not even talking about them having a great 3-point shooting run. That's when things could get really crazy. But if they just shoot pretty well from 3, I really don't think anybody's beating OKC. So I can totally see that outcome. Also, I'm realizing now, because they sat everybody in the last couple games, OKC actually fell out of the top 4 in net rating in a single season for this year. But just know that they were there with like 2 games left in the regular season. So in terms of meaningful basketball, that is still where they ranked. Speaking of the Thunder, Logan, I think they very much factor into this conversation. What do you think is the best rivalry in the NBA right now that we might get to see rekindled in these playoffs? Because there's a few that I think we could easily see, and it'd be pretty awesome to get over 7 games.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that I go to is definitely OKC Denver, and just with what bangers those games have been. Now, obviously, I'm going to favor OKC, but you know, it's that classic number 1 defense versus number 1 offense, man. And the series we got last season was awesome. Aaron Gordon's heroics, all of the tight late game finishes. there's some other little ones, but considering the history, considering how evenly matched I think both of these teams are, and again the offense-defense dynamic, I think that takes the cake is number one for me. Although there's one out east that I'm also very excited for potentially.
Number one offense versus number one defense is super fun. In my opinion, the two best players in the world facing off is super fun. And like you said, I mean, whenever you get a 7-game series that sort of felt like the de facto Western Conference Finals last year, no disrespect to the Timberwolves, but I felt like those were the two best teams in the conference. Like, that's pretty epic, and they played 2 awesome games this year. It does just feel like we're always in for a really good basketball game when the Thunder and the Nuggets face off. That being said, I do think Spurs Thunder might be even more compelling at this point, because I think the Spurs have shown much more of an ability to beat OKC this season. In that one, we also get Wemby versus Shea, which is just so peak, and like, there's more bad blood in that matchup. There's more tension. It feels more like an actual contemptuous rivalry, although some of that has built up in Nuggets Thunder too. But like, Wemby hates Chet. Wemby hates OKC. Shea takes the matchup personally, clearly, and like, it was almost the most significant thing OKC could do this year, beating the Spurs in their most recent matchup in which Shea played, because like, what else do they have to prove in the regular season? There's really nothing. So you get to see the team with the best formula to beat the best team go up against them, because that's what the Spurs have, more so than the Nuggets for sure. And you're also just like looking at the future of the NBA, the present and the future, but these two teams that we think are going to be the kings of the West for years to come. I think that that's probably my favorite. But then also, I don't know if we can really call it a rivalry, but it feels that way to me. Like, Spurs Nuggets looming in the second round is incredible because of the Jokic-Wemby battle and how awesome those head-to-head matchups have been. That's incredible when you talk about best offensive player versus best defensive player as a direct one-on-one matchup. I'm pretty much all looking out west.
Those are great picks. I was just going to say, when you say rekindled, and that's where like I kind of think that these are just beginning in a little ways. That's why I was hesitant to put, because San Antonio's just now crashing the party, but I completely agree with you. Those are the 3 series that I'm most excited for that we could potentially get.
I get what you're saying, but like, it feels like that's already not a fully formed rivalry.
With this
maybe,
regular
but like,
season,
that's
I
a
would
big
agree.
rivalry, because those were not like regular games. Those were like meaningful games, a Christmas game, an NBA Cup semifinal. These games happen in short succession, and like, it clearly meant so much to these two teams that were the 2 best regular season teams in basketball, with like the 2 emerging faces of the NBA. It's pretty awesome.
Agreed. And of course, I'm just as excited for Denver, Minnesota in the first round. I mean, that's going to rock.
Absolutely. Like, that is the most established one at this point. And obviously it's a sure thing, but like, 3 playoff meetings in 4 years between divisional rivals, you don't get that often. So that is really, really fun for sure. Okay. What's the one out east that you were thinking of?
I'm really excited for a potential Boston-New York series if we get it. And it's more so due to the historical aspect, you know, both rivals in the Atlantic, like these teams always see each other. And I know the ferocity and the energy that the Knicks are going to play with. Like, I know that, you know, we can have our criticisms about the roster construction and the potential pitfalls of this team, and I do think they're going to get exposed. The Knicks bring it in the playoffs. They bust their ass. They play hard. Like, I just think that is going to be a physical, nasty, really competitive series. And again, just considering the division implications of it, I'm pumped for that one. Cleveland, Detroit, I'm also excited for, but not as much, I would say, as for Boston, New York.
Yeah, and Knicks Celtics feels like more of a rivalry because we saw it in the playoffs last year, and it was such a shocking outcome, like one of the most surprising series outcomes I can think of, honestly, that New York won that series. I do view the Celtics as just being a level up from them as a team, which is why I'm maybe not as excited for it, because I think that they would take care of business in that rematch, but it is pretty awesome. You're right. Like, 2 of the most iconic Eastern Conference brands, these historic franchises, massive Northeast markets, getting to have that opportunity for revenge from last year, for the Celtics getting the opportunity to prove the doubters wrong for the Knicks. Like, that's very fun for sure. I do think that that's the choice in the East, because other than that, I don't really see like a rivalry. Like Pistons, Cavs, yeah, they play in the same division, but that isn't like a rivalry yet. I think after 6 or 7 games it would be, but with the Celtics and Knicks, you already have a bit of that history. All right. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you have enjoyed the play-in basketball tonight, Logan. I mean, we already talked about Sixers Magic yesterday or Monday because I didn't realize that they were playing Hornets Heat before that game. So that was on me. But I am going to ride with the Sixers because I can't support the toxicity of the Orlando Magic. And unfortunately, I do think the Clippers are going to beat the Golden State Warriors because they're better.
I am going to be rooting all of my little heart out for Steph Curry.
Thanks, man. Me too. I think there's a world where Steph is awesome, but Kawhi is also awesome, and so the Clippers just win anyways. It's not a foregone conclusion.
I just want that one more classic Steph moment that gets all the hair on my arms standing up and makes me feel tingly and joyful like a child, because that is what a elite Steph Curry experience does to an MF.
You and me both, my friend. I'm praying for it, but I am going to pick the Clippers
honestly,
with
bro,
the rational side of my mind.
We kind of can't lose, dude. Either we get to see the Dubs ball out or Kawhi and DG go crazy. Like, I'm just excited for that game, period.
Well, my dream was to see both those teams in the playoffs in the 7 and 8 seeds, but alas, it was not to be this year. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed all the playoff content. We will be back tomorrow reacting to tonight's play-in games and then also, again, making our NBA title picks and previewing a couple more series. So stay tuned for that. You can find all of our full shows on YouTube and across all audio platforms. You can also find on YouTube our video essays and video breakdowns that we do. Going to be cranking out as many of those as I can throughout the playoffs. And if you want to follow us on social, you know where to find us. TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. So one shout out to Matthew Spawnhour before we go, because sweet Matthew, I know he was so nervous before that game. I texted him. I said, I'm thinking of you. Go kill it out there, man. And he was very much in a doomer mentality. Everybody's rooting for us. That means things are going to go wrong. I think it's only natural if you're a Hornets fan. Matthew, when you smile, the world smiles upon you. The sun shines a little brighter. And go Hornets, man. Shout out to the Hornets. Even though it did happen in a Miles Bridges masterclass and a game in which LaMelo Ball swiped at Bam's foot and took him out for the game, I still can't help but just loving those Charlotte Hornets, man. So shout out to them, and shout out to Matthew Spawnhour, and shout out to you, Logan Camden, and shout out to all of you guys who are watching and listening. And with that, I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.